Yuri Milner.
Yes.
Yuri, when you were 10, what were you dreaming about?
Physics.
Physics. What kept you away?
In fact, I think about 25 years ago, I've seen for the first time Stephen Hawking, who's going to speak later today, in Moscow, in our institute where I was doing my PhD, which I never finished. So.
And that inspired you not to finish your PhD, is the story I'm hearing.
Yes.
Because you said, I'm never going to be as smart as Stephen Hawking.
Absolutely.
So what's the point? Not bad. So then what did you do?
When, if you roll forward, 15 years, I started to invest in the internet.
Yes.
And then there were, few things in between, like Wharton, World Bank, and a few other things.
And in some ways, it would probably be an exaggeration to say that anybody is the Stephen Hawking of anything, but you were kind of the Stephen Hawking of investing in the sense that you've made some extremely forward-looking investments, not least of which has been to get, I guess, a 2% piece or a nearly 2% piece of Facebook for about $200 million US. It just leads to the obvious question you must get asked all the time. When you size up something in which to invest, how central is innovation to what you're sizing up? And do you have some way of sifting the good from the bad?
Well, it's very kind of you to make that comparison. But I think it's actually, interestingly enough, it's not about innovation, it's about people. So I think, what I do is really geared towards trying to assess people and founders behind the business.
Is it possible if somebody came in and said, great conversation, they're clearly really smart, they actually say, I got nothing, I have no idea, but I am planning to sit down and think hard, and with your $50 million, I am confident I can make it happen?
I think that's pretty close to what Y Combinator is doing. And
because you guys invest in every single thing that comes out of Y Combinator, sight unseen.
Yes. So we believe that they have an amazing. Actually, they automated they built a factory to select innovation very early, and I think that they are getting bigger and bigger market share of innovation in the Silicon Valley. So it's basically a bet on their production factory.
And you have a lot of views on social. Has that been an area you've specifically targeted, to the extent that you've targeted anything?
Not as early as Y Combinator.
Yes.
But we think that it's a dominant theme in the last few years, and we believe it will continue to be for the next few years.
And what's your experience?
Probably Naveen will certify to that.
What's your experience in the innovative or entrepreneurial environments, geographically speaking, around the world? Silicon Valley versus, say, Russia versus Europe. Are there major differences, or wherever there's talent, good ideas can happen?
I think so. Somehow it happens. Yeah, I think it can happen everywhere. But the way it does happen most of the time is where a lot of concentration already exists. Most innovation happens. It's almost like a network effect where it's exponentially more innovative where there is a critical mass, which happens to be Silicon Valley at the time.
And do you think government and provision of government services is ripe for innovation as well? I know you were appointed by President Medvedev to a commission on government reform.
Well, it's not government reform. It's actually called
modernization.
Modernization and innovation.
What does the commission do?
Well, it basically is supposed to encourage innovation in Russia. And one would think, why would somebody do something like that in a country which is famous for natural resources, mostly? But turns out that it's actually a good place to do that, because if you look at probably the best programming competition, which is called ICM Championship, so Russian teams won every second one of them. So it's kind of interesting that it kind of makes sense to encourage innovation in Russia. when we first invested in Facebook, I discovered that a lot of Russians, working at Facebook.
That was after you invested.
Yes.
Sure.